Rewind. This is Dope Nostalgia.
Hello, welcome to Dope Nostalgia. I'm your host, Naomi, and my special guest today was a member of the Wild Strawberries, a Canadian pop rock band that did awesome things in the 90s and still continue to make beautiful music to this day. I'm going to give you some information so you know all about Wild Strawberries in this Wikipedia moment.
Wikipedia moment.
Please bear in mind that Wikipedia is not to be taken as actual 100% fact. Any donkey could edit it at any time. If I'm reading you the artist's bio, that stuff is real truth.
Wild Strawberries is a Canadian pop rock band consisting of a married couple, Roberta Carter Harrison and Ken Harrison. They have released a number of albums, their latest being Dear Post Haste, that came out in 2020. Wild Strawberries was established during the couple's time at university, during which they would hold jam sessions with friends. In 1988, the band submitted the song Crying Shame to Toronto radio station CFNY for its new music search contest. It won the contest and received airplay from the station. Harrison established a studio, enabling the band to produce its early releases independently, and led to the founding of the Strawberry Records label. The album Grace drew the attention of record label A&M Records of Canada, which would distribute the band's next release, the album Bet You Think I'm Lonely. The success of Bet You Think I'm Lonely resulted in a national concert tour and a contract with Network, a Vancouver-based independent record label, for the production of their albums. 2 albums were released under that label. A third album, Twist, was initially sponsored by Network, but creative differences resulted in the dissolution of the partnership. The success of Bet You Think I'm Lonely also earned the band a 1995 Juno Award nomination for Best New Group. Other early hits for the duo included Life-Size Marilyn Monroe and Crying Shame. The song I Don't Want to Think About It is part of the soundtrack of the 1996 film Foxfire. Other songs by the band have been included in the soundtrack for the films At Station Farm, The Highwaymen, Stir of Echoes, Suspicious River, and Universal Soldier 2, Brothers in Arms. Roberta and Ken are still making beautiful music today and dabbling in all kinds of genres, including electronic music. So, let's let Roberta tell us what's been up with Wild Strawberries. Welcome to the show, Roberta Harrison. So once again, welcome to Dope Nostalgia. We're a podcast that talks about what people did in the 90s that was huge hits for them, huge hits all over the country, North America, the world, and what you're up to now as well. So if we go all the way back to your guys' meeting and inception, Wild Strawberries, you got together in university in the late 80s?
That's right. It was probably 89. I'm really bad with like historical dates and stuff, but we got married in 88, Ken and I do not remember knowing anything about this as part of my future at the time. So I'm going to say like by 89, I think we put out our first cassette in 89. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a bit of a blur, but you're right. Late 80s, that's close enough at this point.
Who were your musical heroes and influences at the time?
So when I was a kid, I just really wasn't exposed to a ton more than AM radio. I knew all the pop, hits of AM radio at the time. Was it 680, I think? AM 680. Anyhow, when I started dating Ken, and again, we met young, high school, fell in love, started dating, he started exposing me to some really cool stuff I hadn't heard of. Like I fell in love with Jane Siberry, Elvis Costello, Kate Bush. And it just sort of opened my world up. I had also dabbled a little bit in Christian contemporary music because we were a church-going family. So Amy Grant was a huge influence on me. I still adore her. I fell down an Amy Grant rabbit hole just a couple weeks ago. I adore her. Oh, she's so great.
So she was On album.
Yes. Yeah, she's amazing. And she's such a cool person. But anyhow, once I started dating Ken, I was exposed to some cooler music. And so that had some influence on me. Sinead O'Connor was huge for me.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Like, I don't hear much about her anymore.
I know. Yeah, I think it's been not an easy time for her, personally and in the industry, but I do adore her.
It's a rough industry and it hadn't been kind to her. I do remember some of that time, but
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So you're making you said you released your first cassettes
Yeah.
around that time.
We were still studying at U of T, and we had met up with some other guys at university and friends from our youth to form the band and made a little cassette. We didn't like you couldn't do artwork as easily as you can now. Obviously, everything was pretty analog, so we just painted strawberries on the cassette covers for each cassette. And there are pictures, and people still say, I remember coming to your house and painting strawberries on your first cassette. Like, so every cassette was different, individualized by one of our friends or family.
That's really special.
Yeah, it was fun.
I hope there's still a lot of people who have those copies.
I hope they're out there somewhere. Yeah.
And then the first song I remember hearing from you guys was Heroin.
Okay. Yes. So the cassettes I'm talking about way predate
Way
that.
before that. Yeah.
Yeah. We had some success with Crying Shame with the help of CFNY out of Toronto. We worked life-size Marilyn Monroe to radio independently. My sister and I were just calling stations and pretending to be like marketing people and got that going. And then we signed to an indie label to release. It was before Bet You Think it was called Bet You Think I'm Lonely, I think, at that point. They put an EP out first, maybe. Again, it's all a blur, but Heroin was with Network Records. So I think that's like maybe 92, 93. You'll have to fact check me.
Yeah.
94.
I don't want to think about it. Was that also during the network times?
That's right. Same album. Yes. We had I don't want to think about it on one of our first indie records called Grace. And we redid it, I believe. Again, if Ken were here, he'd be like, oh my goodness, you're so far out, so far from.
That's okay.
But that's my memory. That's my memory. It was on an old recording of Grace, and then we redid it with Network. And Sarah McLachlan played guitar, and it was just really exciting and fun. They really rocked it out.
It sounds like it's one of those songs that, you really believed in, and that's why you brought it back to make sure that it still got its due.
That's right.
I like that. I like that story. And getting involved with Network obviously probably is the catalyst for getting together with Sarah McLachlan, I'm imagining.
That's right. I think the connection was her keyboard player at the time, David Kershaw. I'm almost sure of it because he offered or agreed to mix. We'd already recorded the songs for the Heroin record. He remixed, added some new tracks like Sarah's guitar. He had me re-sing some of the vocals and then mixed it. And that's what we presented to Network for them. And they decided to sign it. Yeah. So that was great.
Was it a good time during the Network days?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was nice to have a team behind the project. That was super. Yeah. And playing on Lilith Fair. That's a hard one to say. Lilith Fair. I think maybe four different summers we got to play a few gigs each summer. So Pregnant, and then Breastfeeding Baby, and then just all through the progression with our first kid.
Wow. So were you on the road parenting?
Yeah, so that was doable with one. She's just turned 25, and she was on the tour buses and the whole deal. Then we had number 2, and we went out on, I think, one tour, and then we realized it was no longer as doable. We had like a nanny with us, usually a relative or a close friend. And so Ken decided for a while, why don't I stay home, Ken? Stay home with the kids. And instead of my keyboards, we'll just hire another guy to play like an extra guitar line or keyboards or whatever. I think it was mostly guitar. And so we tried that for a little while, but it really wasn't the same without him because he's so integral to the band. And then we were the first 2 were just sort of at the point where we felt like, yeah, we can maybe leave them at home with my parents or again with friends and other relatives. We had just booked a tour. I was doing press, really not feeling well, and then found out I was pregnant. And I had been sick with the first 2 pregnancies, but I was really sick this time. And then found out it was twins, which explains why I felt so crappy. So that tour was off. I was in bed, just trying to survive that pregnancy and take care of the first 2 kids. And so, they're amazing. They're 17 now, the twins. But it was a hell of a ride.
I can't even imagine what a balance you had to strike there. No kidding. But yeah, wow. Congratulations on being able to get it all done. I think that's just so inspiring.
Thank you. During those years, we could not think about touring. We did still try to put a couple Wild Strawberries records out, but they were a little bit few and far between. And we mostly did this stuff with our with EDM DJs and producers, because we could literally write a song, record the vocal, send it off, and be done with it. They do the legwork. Occasionally I would have to go and perform live once in a while, but it was, not that often that it became a problem.
Like scheduled, one-off shows.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, tell me more too about Lilith Fair, because what kind of memorable experiences did you have in those performances? Obviously doing some touring of North America at that point. Is there anything that stands out to you from those days?
I think the overall memory, again, is just like the community, the camaraderie, all the bands. It, again, I'll be terrible at remembering names, but it didn't matter sort of what sort of status people were at. Everybody was just really welcoming and helpful. And, I sat beside Sheryl Crow at press conferences. I ate in the tent with the Cowboy Junkies. It was just it didn't really matter. Everybody was just there to make music and to have fun playing with each other sometimes. And it was just a blast.
Were there jam sessions?
Yeah. So we often would get on stage at the very end of each show after Sarah finished her set. So she would welcome everyone from that day onto stage. So that was fun. I remember it being, maybe we did Joni Mitchell put up a parking lot, whatever that's called. I think we did a Beatles song a couple times. Sarah would pick, and we would all just gather around the mics and blast it out. And so that was really fun. I think Sarah joined us on stage a couple times. But I think that was it for me on stage in terms of collaboration. But everyone was really kind backstage, watching each other's shows as much as they could, either in the crowd or from side stage, and just supporting one another.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, it was great.
And it was so motivating for women.
Yes.
I hope that she put something of that caliber together again one day.
That'd be amazing.
Even if it's not her, if somebody gets it done.
The first thing I remember, you were walking away. You were singing something gentle in the fade. The next thing I remember, I nearly pushed you off the stage. I pretended not to be afraid. I played the fool, I played the drowning man. I will play your heroine. I know the rules, 'cause you write them on my lips. I will play your heroine.
Any other memorable performances, like award shows or much music? Anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know that, no, I don't think we ever performed at much. We were interviewed a few times, went to some of the MMVA shows. I don't think I ever presented there. I have presented at a couple awards shows, but I don't
Mhm.
remember specific details. One show that really stands out, and we were driving all night from somewhere else. Maybe we were up in Kingston or Ottawa playing our own show. And then we got to open for Alanis Morissette after she'd already like gone crazy, crazy wild with Jagged Little Pill. So we were the first opener. And then I think Fronte was on,
Oh yeah.
Dinosaur Jr., and then Alanis. There might have been one more band I'm forgetting, but we were at the very, very beginning of the afternoon.
Mhm.
I think there were, I don't know, is it possible up at Molson Park near Barrie? I don't know if there were like 40, 50,000 people, 60,000 people. So they clearly
Mhm.
weren't all there when we started at the beginning of the day. But
Mhm.
as we got on stage, that's when they opened the gates. And so all of these fans, kids of Alanis, were just like tearing toward the stage to get the best spot for her
Yeah,
performance later. And it was just such a blast to watch from stage. Yeah, that was really fun.
that would be surreal. That whole
Yeah.
time was very surreal because I had been a fan of Alanis as Pop Alanis.
No way. Good for you. I
And
didn't know
then,
her really.
yeah. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, Much is playing this video, and you can't really see her because her hair's in her face a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And just going like, what?
Yeah, it was
That's her?
quite a transition. Yeah. Did she have like a game show or something? Did she host some sort of game show on Canadian TV?
She was a cast member of You Can't Do That on Television, which was
Okay.
that show
Okay.
that was kind of like the Nickelodeon show where you got
Yeah.
slimed.
Yeah. Fun. Fun.
But yeah, she was that. But yeah, no, it was so empowering too because her album, that Jagged Little Pill album, every song is
Amazing. Yeah.
incredible,
It's a
right?
great package. Yeah.
Hmm. Now, how did things start to change for you guys after you had hits on radio and the songs were getting out there and well known?
Yeah, I mean, we got better shows for sure. So,
Mhm.
that was really great. Started to play to more people, which is always fun. Um, I mean, occasionally we would hear ourselves on the radio in the grocery store. I mean, it's sometimes I'm taking piano lessons as an adult, and my piano teacher just last week said, "Oh, I think I heard you when I was shopping last week," and it's still
Nice.
kind of fun. Like it's oldie goldies at this point, easy listening, but people still hear us out there, which is kind of fun.
I'm pretty sure you're still in rotation.
Yeah, yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. Some of the older stuff. So yeah, that's kind of fun. I don't know how much actually changed. That's a hard one. We moved out to the country to this little converted church, built a studio and raised the kids out here. So, I mean, not that we were massively famous, minorly famous in Canada, small fish in a small pond, but we did want to sort of pull the kids away from that whole scene.
Yeah.
And we've just raised them out here in the country, and it's been really fun, really good. They all want to go back to the city, of course, as they grow up, but
I understand that. I
yeah.
remember that as a kid trying to we were in small town Alberta, but trying to get into Edmonton as much as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, wow. I love that you live in a converted church. I was already admiring the ceiling and the architecture around you.
Yeah. So the idea, and it didn't always work out, but the idea was we put the glass window down to where the living and dining room area is, because then we could record up here and be working and still see the kids, make sure they're not killing one another. But it rarely worked that we could be up here when we didn't have help to take care of them. But it was good effort.
No kidding. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So then the Junos Best New Group nomination in 1995.
Yes.
Did you go to the ceremony and everything?
Yes, we did. And you know what? That's where we met Dave Kershaw, I'm pretty sure, from Sarah's band. And so maybe my timeline is very wrong. Maybe Network's more like 96 probably.
Mm.
See that? Our first was born in 98, and we did tour with her when she was like 6 weeks old on Quiver, which was our second network record. So maybe Heroine is like 96. But yes, we went to the Junos, hung out with Dave Kershaw, Ashwin Sood, Brian Minato from Sarah's band, and it was a really fun night. Hamilton, I think we were in Hamilton that year. Yeah.
I feel like the Junos didn't start moving around from city to city until like the 2000s.
I know,
maybe
but
not.
isn't that weird? But I think we were in Hamilton. Again,
Makes sense.
100% need fact checking. It's a blur.
I have seen you once with your altruistic bandage, and I know that you have given me the eye. Let me see you twice, and I will be your appendage in the silver dollar kingdom of the blind. I bet you think I'm lonely. I bet you think I got you on my mind. You were yours and I was always mine. I bet you think I'm lonely. I bet you think I'm crying all the time. Pity always said she'd be alright. After these messages, we'll be right back.
Dope Nostalgia listeners, I love you and I thank you so much for being a part of this show and its success over the last 2 years. We have what's called Patreon for those who want to support the show financially. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a subscriber and get bonus content, early podcast release, all kinds of cool behind-the-scenes stuff, and more. There's different tiers of membership starting at only $1 a month. And we even have some special merch for you guys who are in it for the long run. So please join our Patreon. It's at www.patreon.com/dope nostalgia.
Let's Watch Something is a casual movie review podcast starring Anthony.
And Jack!
Everyone loves hearing industry professionals talking about their craft.
That's not us.
We're just a couple of movie lovers
Couple of nerds.
talking about movies
So come join us on Let's Watch Something.
with Anthony and Jack. Anchor.fm/LWS.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's watch something.
Let's watch something.
Let's watch something.
Let's watch something.
There are lots of teddy bears, but only one Teddy Ruxpin.
Hi, my name is Teddy Ruxpin.
Hi, Teddy.
Your friend is what I'd like to
He's
be.
alive. How does he do that? He's a magic bear.
One day, we found an old treasure map. The treasure was supposed to be
My friend Teddy Ruxpin.
Teddy Ruxpin comes with storybook and cassette. Other stories sold separately, batteries not included.
What album are you most proud of from that era, or what were you most invested in?
So first, if I can answer with one that's not in that era, we might have made it 8 or 10 years ago, called Vesper 50. Oh, I know for a fact Ken was turning 50. So he just turned 58. So it was 8 years ago. There's a lot of Ken and I singing together, which is how we originally started in the early days on our first release, Carving Wood in Spectacles, and then in Grace. We both sang quite a bit. So Vesper 50 it's a beautiful record. No one's heard of it, but it's lovely. And we sing a lot together. And that's one of my favorite of all the records we've ever made. But I think of that era, the network era, Quiver, although it didn't get the attention Heroine got, I'm really, really proud of Quiver. I really like it. A little heavier, a little darker. But yeah, it just fit the mood at the time.
If you could pick an album track or a deep cut off Quiver that you wish would
Oh.
have been the single, what would it have been?
Oh, which I wish would have been the single. I think we released Trampoline, which has got an amazing video that our videographer Lisa Mann made. And I was pregnant then, and we were trying to hide it, not always successfully, but we had body doubles to do like acrobatic work behind me to look like me, like they wore the same outfit I wore, and that's clearly not me doing the backflips. But
Oh, wow.
that was released, so that's not the right answer. Oh, I'd have to have it in front of me to see. And again, they all blur together, but I think there's one on that album called I Know You're Gonna Break My Heart. Could it have been a single? Probably not, but it is just heartbreakingly beautiful. Like, I didn't write those lyrics. That was Ken, and my understanding, he's not here to defend himself, but he wrote that when our first was born. And it's just so poignant and beautiful. And it's that idea of like, you're holding this new life and you are like, you've never felt so much love for another being, but knowing that it can't stay that way forever, you know, that's human being is going to grow into their own person and have their own, you know, personality traits and belief systems and life, and you're going to love them in a different way. But it was just, I mean, it was really kind of sad, but so beautiful. And I think that's actually been in a small indie film recently as the outtakes, because Ken didn't choose it for the movie, but he was composing the soundtrack for the movie, and the director chose I Know You're Gonna Break My Heart for the credits.
I have a Wikipedia here on the side to
there
see.
you go.
I know
There
it's
you
not the most reliable source of information, but that's why it's on my side to see if there's any info on that. It does talk about some movie soundtracks, but it doesn't mention that song in particular.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's on the credits. Maybe if he gets back shortly, we can ask him what it was called.
Okay, we'll keep that in the side here for him and see if he
sidebar.
Know you're gonna break my heart long before the world turns cold. Know it's gonna hurt like nothing I have known. I know you're gonna break my heart. I think about it when I hold you closer than I ever thought I needed to. Time turns your smile into a stone. I don't wanna see it, and I know that I'll never know this place we're living. I know you're gonna break my heart long before the world turns cold. I know it's gonna hurt like nothing I have known.
I always want to know from people what songs they really believed in the
Yeah,
most, you know, not just what the record company wanted to put out.
Sure. Yeah, I'd have to look at the titles again and put myself back in that place. But I think, you see, and then after we left Network, we put a record out called Twist, and we still made a video for Mirror Mirror, which I loved. But by then, like, it is pretty hard to get radio on your own. We did it with Life Size Marilyn Monroe, and we were totally indie. But I think because no one had ever heard of us yet across the country, I think, you know, when you're the new kid on the block, it's a little bit easier sometimes to catch people's attention.
Depending on the station and
who you're
talking
so
to.
after we left Network, I wouldn't say we've had a ton of radio. We did get a song called 1,000 Kisses out there on Adult Contemporary, and that was from Twist.
Mhm.
And that's a really pretty song too. And then we had Wrong to Let You Go, which is another whole crazy story. We got that on Canadian radio through Warner. We just released one song with Warner because it was a collaboration with one of their artists named Robert Michaels. And so
Okay.
Warner promoted it, got some radio for us, and then that's how we got into the EDM world. Warner sent it to DJs just to get a mix for the clubs, just another way to push the song. And ATB in Germany said, I don't want you to pay me to mix this for the clubs. I want to take this song and make it my own, make it a hit, a single on my album. So he released it and it was a hit. It went to number 7 on mainstream radio in Germany. Like it wasn't on the dance chart per se. It was like their actual radio chart.
Was that Let You Go?
That's Let You Go. Yeah. So it was Wrong to Let You Go in Canada and had flamenco guitar from Robert Michael. And then Andre said, no, I just want the melody and the vocal, and I want to build a song around that. And we had never met Andre ATB or his management when I got a phone call saying, you know, we have this hit. We're number 9 this week, predicted number 7, I think the following week. We need to go on Top of the Pops. Can you come to Germany?
Wow.
And I said, well, that would be really nice, but I'm like literally 8.5 months pregnant. I'm not allowed to fly. Nice to meet you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you have any sisters? Well, I have 3 sisters, none of whom want to come to Germany and pretend to be me on the Top of the Pops. But in the end, my hairdresser, makeup artist, Pamela Neal, who's just like super uber talented. She lives in LA now and does huge artists like Pink and St. Vincent. And anyhow, at the time she was in Canada, and she graciously agreed to put on a dark wig. She has blonde hair, and fake being me on Top of the Pops for the first single with Andre. And I did get to go back in person and do a couple other songs with him later on in the flesh. But the first one was Pamela, and that's also on YouTube, and that is a hoot.
I was gonna say, I hope I can find that on YouTube.
Yes, yeah, I think it's out there. For a while, we lost track of it, but and just so everybody knows, everybody lip syncs on the Top of the Pops. They don't want you to sing live, so she was just doing what everyone does. It's not really Milli Vanilli. But I did get to sing live when I went back once, which was really exciting.
Well, that's good. No, I've always understood that about Top of the Pops. They require lip syncing.
Yes, they do prefer that.
Yeah, there's quite a few shows I think that used to be like that.
Yes.
Yeah. No more naming names of them, but yes, there was quite a few. I like to call them out. Have you always felt like a natural performer on stage, like it's home, or do you get stage frights?
I did not feel natural at all at the beginning. When we tried to busk, like the Bare Naked Ladies were just like starting to become huge, and they started with busking, right? This is around the 89, 90 era. And so we tried to busk, and it was a failure. I was quite quiet at the time, and I just didn't have any personality yet. I mean, I had personality, but I wasn't really ready to like discover that and show it to the world. So that was a bummer. We played in some small little clubs in Kensington Market in Toronto, and I started to get more comfortable singing the songs, but talking between the songs was just a nightmare. I was terrified. So I started memorizing poetry and reciting poetry. It was really bad. And I was really nervous and had a lot of stage fright, but I did progressively get to the point where I would talk so much that Ken would say to the drummer, like, start the song, shut her up.
Stage banter terrifies me. I used to sing in a rock band, and I tried to plan out ahead of time things I was going to say.
Yes.
And it never worked out because you turn around and like someone had to tune a guitar or something.
Yeah. And then you like come up with something else. Yeah.
How you guys doing tonight? Everyone's like, yeah, okay, go to the next song. And I'm like, do I need to be funny?
I know. Or am I a stand-up comic? We toured a bit with Jan Arden, who is just the sweetest person and the funniest, as everyone knows now. But at the time, she was mostly doing music. And she was killing me. She was so funny.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Like her, I love I haven't watched her show yet.
I've watched
haven't.
some of it. It's great. Love it.
I saw a fight scene. Was it between her and Sarah McLachlan?
That's so great. It's so great. I love it when they take the piss out of themselves and out of each other. It's so great.
Well, what are some of the favorite things about your culture, your Canadian culture, and your country? First of all, what part? You're in Eastern Canada, so we're in Ontario?
outside of Toronto. Yeah, yeah. Born and raised. We went to Toronto for many years, and now we're sort of back out where we were born and raised. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some things, like if you were to bring a tourist, somebody coming to visit you, to somewhere cool that means a lot to you, where would you take them?
Well, I would definitely love to bring someone like out here to the country where we live, and show them my favorite walk in the forest by the river where I take the dog every day. There's actual beavers down there. I haven't seen a beaver, but I've seen their handiwork. And one of our kids saw the beaver once a few years ago, came running back home and said, "Mom, I saw a beaver." I'm like, no, you didn't see a beaver. We're in southwestern Ontario. There's no way, but there are indeed beavers there, deer, and all kinds of. There are bald eagles back there, so that's one.
Cool.
But I would also probably take them to Toronto or maybe Montreal for some amazing food.
Mm-hmm.
That was one really fun thing about touring was, trying to find a great Indian restaurant wherever we were. That's after I was done with the thrift store in whatever town we were in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen much of Eastern Canada. I've been as far east as I've been to Toronto once.
Yes.
But yeah, have you, obviously in your travels across the country, have you been out to like Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary?
Absolutely. Yeah. We always loved coming west. It's a long drive. Like, let's not kid ourselves. That is a haul. But once we got there, we always loved it. Some, a couple scary times going through the mountains in terrible weather, but always worth it.
Treacherous yet beautiful.
Yes.
Winter time is rough, but
it is.
But man, it's a real challenge. Being a Canadian artist is hardcore. To travel this country in a bus or a van or whatever. I imagine
like it's probably even harder now than 30 years ago when we were doing it, right? Just this, the state of the music industry and the live scene. Like, I hope it's thriving, but I've heard that it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where else has your music career allowed you to travel to?
So, Germany for sure. Got to go to Poland and Hungary with ATB. And then some stuff in the States with the Lilith Fair tour, and then a little bit more again with ATB with Andre. We did a tour, I think it's 10 years ago now, 10 years this fall, where even though he's an electronic guy, he brought a live band and a bunch of the singers that had done tracks with him. And so we got to play in LA and San Francisco, Chicago, and New York at really nice venues. And it was really fun. And I hadn't, been touring a ton for quite a while with all the little screaming humans in my life. So it was really kind of exciting to be back at it.
Mm-hmm. Now, traveling to now, pandemic hits, you have an album coming out. That was Dear Post Haste, right?
That's right. Yes.
Now, did you release it before or after the pandemic?
So we started just putting a song out every month during the pandemic. I think that was in 2020, just into 2021. And then we put it out as a package. It's the only one we ever put on vinyl. And so I still slowly get orders every once in a while. Someone orders one and I mail it out, but we didn't tour at all, obviously. And we really didn't do any promotion. I don't know, we still do lots of music. So Ken has, I think, 3 projects with Network right now. He's signed to Network for lo-fi music, for piano music, and for ambient music.
Nice.
And I'm still really busy with EDM. I have I think it's 3 EDM songs coming out on the 23rd of February. And that's that's my fault. I double booked or triple booked. I'm not supposed to do that, but 3 are coming out on the same day. Another one's coming out in March, and I've just written another one. So like that's still, still sort of fumbling along. Whether Ken and I put another Wild Strawberries record out or not, I'm not sure what the future holds, but we're still going to make music. We may try a project with a new name where it's still my vocal and it's still Ken's amazing production and sort of ideas, but I've been writing more with the EDM stuff, with the dance stuff, melody and or lyric, depending on the track. And I didn't really do that in the Wild Strawberries days. So we're sort of thinking maybe a whole new project and sort of a slightly different approach to the songwriting process. Yeah.
It'll be exciting to see what your next steps are, what comes out. Where can people support the music that you have out now?
So Spotify, Apple, I think we still have a website. That's how someone found our album and ordered it yesterday. So we still have wildstrawberriesmusic.com, and that's where all the stuff is available. We have all the CDs in our basement. We still ship them out to people that still like physical product.
I love that.
But otherwise it's really like about Spotify and stuff now. And I know for his stuff with Network, Pantone VU is Ken's lo-fi project with Ashwin Sood, who we met through Sarah back in the day. They're really good friends and musical partners, so they do the projects at Network together. So Pantone VU and Tenik is the piano guy, and the ambient project is called NVLP, like envelope or envelop, and it's so that's you can find all of that on Spotify and stuff too. I think they have social media. I was just about to say, like, I'm terrible with social media. I'm just too old. So, I have a little bit of stuff on Facebook. It's so embarrassing to say. My kids are so embarrassed, but also they would be embarrassed. If I was on TikTok, they would be even more embarrassed. So they're like, just stay on Facebook, Mom, you're fine. But yeah, that all happened. And I was just like, if that had been going 30 years ago, I can't imagine. We had snail mail addresses for people, and we would write a newsletter and mail it, like stamp it and mail it every month. And we lost track of all those early fans. We did progress to email, I gotta admit, but there was no social media. There was no way to sort of, tweet from the road or do TikToks on the tour bus. We had none of that. So, we for sure lost, some people are like, what? The Wild Strawberries are still alive when they do find us. But, we're just doing our thing, making our music and raising our kids, and it's all good.
It sounds like a wonderful time. I'm glad to have learned all about what you've been up to, and it's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So nice to talk to you. Thanks for your interest and your time.
Of course. Before I wrap things up, though, unfortunately, I don't think Ken's going to make it back, but
the poor guy. Do you know what? He'll be like, what a relief.
He can listen to it later.
Yeah. And correct all the mistakes.
Oh, that's funny. He should be like calling in and leaving me a voicemail, actually. And then we like intersperse that into the interview.
Well, I'm glad I corrected the Network heroin era. I'm like, I don't know. Sometime in the 90s, we were with Network.
That's all you need to say. Sometime in the 90s.
It was so long ago. Like, who really cares?
But before I leave you, I was going to ask you what kind of things like make you nostalgic for the 90s. We're talking about like a food or a fashion trend, clothing item, toy. What was something that would bring you back?
Well, I know that the kids are glad that I kept some of my fashion from that time. Like, it hasn't all worked out, and nor did I keep it all, but I was really, really into fashion, thrift stores. And I just like, part of my stage persona was putting on a crazy snowsuit or whatever. Like, I wore some crazy stuff, and I kept some of it as much as I could. And so, they've been able to take the odd jacket or, pair of jeans or something and work it into their own wardrobe and actually have like vintage 90s. Like it's vintage now, right? I mean, even
Really?
though
Yes.
it was vintage at the time that I was buying at a vintage store, it's really like 90s vintage now. And so personally, I can't say that I'm doing much. None of that stuff fits me anymore, for one thing. Maybe I could go back to a thrift store and find my own take on it now, but I don't know if any of that plays into my personal fashion. I do love that our kids, like I have these John Fluvog boots that I wore everywhere. And our oldest they fit her perfectly and she loves them. And it's just like a huge gift, and they were mine. So there's a little bit of sentimental value too, but it's more about the fashion.
That's sweet. That's
Yeah.
sweet. I was going to say, I can't remember much about thrift stores at the time. There were a few, of course, here, but
Yes.
Le Chateau was a big thing too.
Yes. I did some Le Chateau probably, very early 90s. We lived in Montreal for a year. And I remember going to Le Chateau. I don't know if it would have been in Ontario yet, because it felt kind of special at the time. Bought a dress for my sister's wedding there. Yeah. Did Le Chateau survive? Is it long gone?
I think it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, last I heard. It might be online still.
Okay.
Not the same.
That was fast fashion before we even had a term for it, hey?
That was like my
That
entire
stuff
junior
didn't
high
last.
wardrobe.
Yeah, I know. That stuff did not last.
94, 95. It was all, that was all, like what I wore.
Yeah.
Oh, Roberta, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Nice to talk with you too. Thank you so much.
Social media, we've got it. Send us an email, dopenostalgiapodcast@gmail.com. Twitter, Nostalgia Dope. Or on Insta, dope_nostalgia.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work.